All right, we'll go ahead and begin. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we have more devotees we're expecting on this call. Very warm welcome to Aruddha Mataji, who really is the source of it all, the inspiration behind all of us that are inspired to start this project of Vaishnav Academy. So we're very grateful. She's the one who kicked it off with our rollout for Vaishnav Academy in May. And we've had a lot of interest all through the summer in the different webinars that we've done. A lot of devotees taking up homeschooling, not just because of the pandemic, but actually planning to continue it. And devotees from around the world have been contacting Vaishnav Academy. And so there were so many questions being generated that Aruddha Mataji kindly agreed to do a question answer session, or in fact suggested. I always appreciate the initiative she takes to serve the devotees. And this way, this gives an opportunity to ask away and have our questions answered. Mataji has been just zooming around during this pandemic, doing webinars for China lately that are being translated into Chinese, and she's getting comments in Chinese. So she's learning a new language lately. And so in the midst of all of that, thank you so much, Mataji, for taking out time for us, and welcome.
Thank you, Radhika, for allowing me to share my experiences with all of you. It's been really encouraging to see the response to your efforts and Himangi Mataji's efforts to try to make people comfortable with the idea of homeschooling, and presenting so many seminars. And I'm sure these seminars have been very beneficial to all of you, and you've taken advantage of them. And it really helped to show that the homeschooling as a concept is very, very attractive. And because as we want, as devotees, when we want to pass on the spiritual culture to our children, we have very few options, actually. A lot of us, we're looking for devotee schools, and as we know, there's very few and far apart. And so our next option becomes public schools. And all of you who are here, I'm sure you spend many, many nights worrying about what are your options other than public schools. And now hopefully you come to the point that you are seriously considering this one wonderful alternative of homeschooling. Today in America, I think there's over 2 million children who are being homeschooled, and they are from diverse religious backgrounds, actually. And the statistics shows that these are very successful homeschoolers, and they've done both very well, both morally and academically. So it's been, actually in America, it's been a real success, and the opportunities are so wide open here that it does become very encouraging, versus somewhere in China that I've been, talking to Chinese devotees, where it's so challenging. So actually, we are very fortunate to be in this country, and to actually to be able to try out this alternative, this alternate homeschooling alternative. And my own experience of trying this alternative has been, well, let me get into it. Let me try at least, let me take that plunge of being courageous and trying it. And then if it doesn't work out, I have my options, So this is the mood I went in. And of course, my inspiration, even though I was fairly new devotee, was Prabhupada, and his ideas and his instructions for our children was a big factor in my life, for homeschooling. Because I realized that if I have to stick to homeschooling, then my inspiration has to be beyond just the academics. It has to be more based on what I really want for my children. The the passing of the spiritual culture, like I said, the Krishna conscious culture to our children. And homeschooling provides really great opportunities for that. And so today I'm here to help to try to answer your questions, because I know any endeavor in this world doesn't come without its challenges, and homeschooling also has a lot of challenges, a lot of pitfalls that we have to be aware of, and just like anything else. But the result so far has been, among all people, among even non-devotees, has been that uh, you know, that in spite of all the challenges, overall, the results have been overwhelmingly successful. So with this positive note, I want to open it for questions and try to answer them.
So Mataji, since it is a relatively small and intimate group, I should have discussed this with you earlier, but is it okay if devotees can join in the discussion and unmute themselves?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So if you have a question, if you can just raise your hand, and that way I can call upon you using the Zoom tool of raising your hand. And why Champaklata Saki Mataji, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. You're welcome to turn on your video as well. She had joined us last year for the homeschooling convention here in Chicago, all the way from Atlanta. She found out about the convention at the last minute, booked a ticket, she had a backup ticket, just got on the flight and somehow made it to the homeschooling convention. She has been homeschooling her children, inspired by you, Mataji. And she also went to India for an extended period. During this time, suffered the great loss of her spiritual master, Bhakti Char Maharaj. And she's here with us today to ask and inquire more about homeschooling.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dharmat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to you. Please accept my humble obeisances. Very happy to see you, Mataji. We successfully homeschooled Garima 1 year. And this year I was not very sure because of the conditions I was put in. I was in India, didn't know can I come back or not, or my conditions were bad, and then Guru Maharaj physical body left his body. So on a safer side, what we did, we put Garima on online Georgia, like not the actual school, the online Georgia Cyber Academy school. So I needed your little bit guidance on that. They doing math, English for 2 hours on laptop. And alternately social studies and science 1 hour. So, and then the little one, he's very wired, but I didn't know at that point in time what to do. So at least I took that route for now. So I need your little bit guidance on that if I'm doing a little bit okay or not.
Yeah, I think you're doing fine, because they have to study English and math. That's like basic to, the foundation for other subjects. So if you're spending an hour through this online school, you're spending an hour on each subject. I think this is very good. And then you can, the remaining day, you can do other things, other spiritual studies and activities. So I think it's great because English becomes the basis for all the humanities, and math becomes the basis for all science subjects. So if you focus on these two subjects and really make them good on that, then they will benefit all around. They won't lack anything. They won't miss out on anything. And English, a good command on the English will help, or even in math. So that is really the focus. And then, of course, they can study Shastra and do so many things. Yeah, it seems okay, right?
Yeah. Also, I'm doing Srimad Bhagavatam with her. So last year we finished 75% of first canto. And, she has been following your the books, the activity books, and she really loves it. And she has put all the papers of instructions of Bhishma Dev and Kunti Devi and everything on the wall, so that whenever she passes by, she can read.
Nice. Okay.
So it is really, really helping her, and she asking a lot of questions, this, that. It's been wonderful journey 1 year with her, because she spiritually, she has flew, like she had so much extra time because she was not going to school. She learned harmonium on her own by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. So now when we were in Ujjain temple, she was leading kirtans inside the temple almost 3 times a day on harmonium. And she had so much knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam that a lot of people were asking her questions, because we were in devotee community for 2 months, and she was really able to respond everybody with the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm very grateful to you. Like, somebody asked her, so why your daddy cannot marry again? He was just kidding him. And then she replied, only kings are allowed to marry more times to run their kingdom. No, like ordinary people are not allowed. So she had amazing answers, and I'm eternally grateful to you for guiding us. She has a lot more replies like that. But I have one question here. With Srimad Bhagavatam, I see sometimes when it's philosophy going on, too much, she tend to get bored. So number one, how to get her interest during that time when I really want to explain her something, but sometime it happens twice or thrice a week that she get bored. And number two, she's chanting 8 rounds a day, every day. She's 7-year-old, but chanting sounds very boring to her. And I remember you, Radhika Raman Prabhu always mentioned that chanting is so amazing. And when you tell them that Krishna is dancing on your tongue, they feel amazed to chant. But at times I see her that she is like, Mom, it's so boring. I just have to chant same thing again. So
Okay. Yeah.
help me out understand that.
Yeah. So in terms of, the first question about Srimad Bhagavatam, certain parts are kind of drag for her. And that happens. So in that situation where children are very young and they're not able to, like enjoy every part of the Bhagavatam, then we just go quicker on those areas. We don't have to dwell there. We shouldn't make it a point that they must know everything, because starting at such an early age, they're going to read it again. Hopefully they're going to read it several times in their life, So this is just the beginning. Srimad Bhagavatam can be understood in layers. It's not like we get to the deepest layer right away. It comes with time, with the, experience and age, and all these things, factors could be there. So therefore we don't try to emphasize. So, we just can move faster on those areas. Especially the earlier cantos can be, a little difficult, and for them. So you just move faster, in those areas. And there will come a time when they actually start enjoying everything, because they have developed enough maturity, and relish in the Bhagavatam, where they're enjoying even prayers, even prayers. And then also you'll develop the technique of how to just pick up a point in those prayers, which becomes interesting. You don't have to do every verse on that, but you pick out certain themes or certain, points that Prabhupada makes in certain things and make it into a real exciting thing. For example, if Prabhupada if the idea is within one of those verses is the idea of time, for example. Now, time can get very technical to try to explain and everything, but you can make it very interesting, You can make it very interesting, by explaining different ideas, that she can relate to, right? Like, for example, there's an activity in the guidebook about how the duration of life for different living entities. And I remember doing that with some children, and it became very exciting. So the concept of time became suddenly very exciting and easy, that actually a moth can live a few days versus another living entity, can live a lot longer, can have a long duration of life. A tree can live 1,000 years. Even another little another animal, for example, the dog, some people, there were some children who just loved dogs, and they were shocked to see that their lifespan is not too much, like, I don't know, I'm not sure, but about 10 to 12 years. So it was a shock to them, So this way time becomes very exciting for them. So you just have to take like one little thing from that section, which will be a little difficult for her. Then you pick that up and make it into something exciting. So they become very positive. They think that, oh, everything in Bhagavatam is so exciting. Even the prayers are nice. So you're developing that positive image of every part of the Bhagavatam. And gradually there'll come a point where they're actually going to ask you, can we read this part, the prayers, or they're going to ask you that, can we talk about Mayavadi? I know two children who are really excited about, challenging the Mayavadis. And every time we'd sit, they'd want to challenge the Mayavadis. And he says, can we do that debate? Can we take turns, So, so the same concept which Prabhupada keeps repeating about Mayavadis, you can make it, like a debate. And even a little understanding on that, they just love it. They don't have to go very deep because their understanding is not so deep. Their understanding, Mayavadi's understanding of Krishna, they become actually quite irate. How can they think of Krishna like that, of an ordinary person, or, so like that. So try to think of creative ways how to take, rather than allowing them to think, oh, this part is so boring, I don't want to go through it. So in that boring part, pick out a point that you can make it exciting and then move on, like that. Okay, I hope this helps. And then the next part was, the japa, right? So the japa, yes, it's, even though I wrote in that book that how I would tell my child, it was always not like that, right? There were times where it would be challenging, right? So, and that's the nature of japa. I mean, in other words, it's just something that younger children, they take time. But chanting with them was the easiest to get them inspired. Like children, I noticed in my own experience is that when they are left alone to chant japa on their own, to finish their rounds, they generally found it a drag, like it's too many, I can't do it. So the part is that, okay, you have 16 rounds to chant. Can you try to schedule your day where you can chant with them if they are chanting 8 rounds, if you want them to continue? Otherwise, go slower. They don't have to rush to 8 rounds, if they cannot manage, and they're developing that negative mentality that this is so boring. Well, this is not, not nice, we don't want to let them think like that. So good if you chant. And if they say, or when they realize, oh, my parents are chanting, or my mother is chanting, or father is chanting, then they become, okay, well, this is not so bad. So let them go. Sometimes it's better just to let them go slower so they can develop a nice positive attitude. We don't have to go too fast on that, because what happens is at some point when they realize they really think this is so cool to chant and get initiated, they will double up. They will go really fast. So, and it'll be surprising how fast they go. Okay. The more important is to develop that positive idea. They should not see japa as a punishment, like negatively. That's not good for them.
No, I do chant with her, and she's actually inspired from Guru Maharaj to chant. Since then, she's chanting herself 8 rounds.
Oh, this is so nice.
But sometimes she's like, it's so boring, mom. But then she chants. So I just wanted to know how to make it more interesting so that she keeps going.
Yeah. Well, another way is to chant with other friends, maybe on online, and to see that, oh, my friends are chanting with me, and this is so nice. Try to, find situations like that where she's getting together, even for some time, because she's going to build up her enthusiasm again. Okay.
Thank you, Champaklakata Sakimataji, for your nice questions. We're going to move on to Madhava Hari Prabhu. Would you please share where you're from, and please unmute yourself, perhaps turn on your video.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I am from near Portland, Oregon. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So the question I'm here with my wife, Jayalakshmi Devi Dasi, and we have a couple of questions. So right now, our kids do homeschooling and a combination of public school. So they go to a school which supports homeschooling, and some subjects we teach at home, and some subjects they go to the school, or they used to, now it's all online. So the subjects they learn in school is social studies and science, and and writing. Okay. And we want to know, like, how can we teach science through Srimad Bhagavatam, for example? Like, like the ability to perform experiments. Now we don't have such facilities at home necessarily, but we can obtain them, but we are not sure how to even teach the theoretical concepts. And social studies, it's again, it's another topic where we don't really like what they are learning through social studies, because it's all about America, very America focused, and nothing about the world or world history or any of that. So how to make it interesting through the Srimad Bhagavatam, social studies and science? And that's the first question. The second question is on the aspect of following up on the aspect of japa. Right now, yeah, we do see them that they get distracted with each other, and or something else. And we have three kids, and two of them chant, but they get into like talks in between chanting. So even with us chanting with them, like we try to do our rounds in the morning when they are sleeping. So if we schedule some chanting with them, how do we, because we have a very young baby as well, 3 years old, not so young, but he takes our attention as well, right? He demands attention. So how can we coordinate that time of chanting with them? Because it may not happen at the same time every day. So we don't want them to be distracted in chanting, and we don't want to necessarily scold them for not chanting properly, even though we do scold them sometimes. But yeah, that is the second question.
Okay, so regarding teaching of science to the Srimad Bhagavatam, science has been presented in many different cantos, and specifically you must have heard the fifth canto talks about the structure of the universe, and so it goes into quite a bit of detail. So you can definitely study that with your children, and also the creation of the material world is described a lot in the third canto. So there's many, it's in many different areas, in many different cantos, the science has been, explained in ways. Of course, when you talk about experiments, that's not something you're going to get from Srimad Bhagavatam. So for that, if you can find, they're already going to children to school. So this is very good. They can learn experiments through that. So this is very smart, where they can go to school and they can do the experiments from there. So that should take care of that. But definitely, I would give them a foundation of science from Srimad Bhagavatam before before they learn science from the outside books, because as you know, the material presented in Srimad Bhagavatam is theistic, and by being grounded in theistic philosophy, in the Vedic conclusions of science, as presented by, in the purports by Srila Prabhupada. As you know, it was one of Prabhupada's great topics, and he would lead animated discussions with his science devotees, and there's, of course, there's other resources now, that's available by our devotee scientists. They are available. There's one magazine called Origins Magazine, which has got a lot of information. I'm sure you have a lot of books already, and Dutta Karma Prabhu and Sadhaputta, they have given us a lot of material, and they're very advanced though. So the child may not be ready for those things, but you can make it simpler for her, for your children. But the idea is to give them the foundation to understand science first through our shastras, and then when they when it's presented to them through outside, materials, then they can understand and in the proper perspective. That's what I found very, very crucial and very, very nice. When they are presented like that, and then when they are presented with the outside scientific theories, then they can see it. They can take it with a grain of salt. They know that I have to study this, and this is very nice because they can use it in Krishna's service later on to defeat, atheistic theories and things. So it becomes a great tool for them, and also it helps protect their spiritual life. Because the education that the children are exposed to outside, it becomes very challenging for them. And later on, children who have not been given the foundation from Shastra, then they tend to become doubtful, and they also may lose their faith. Because the way the modern science presents it is so attractive. It's just so attractive, and to children, and you put it in contrast with other, religious theories, it becomes more attractive to them. So unless we try to balance that properly and do that needful, then they will naturally question to the point that they're going to become cynical later on. So that's one thing. And so what you're doing is okay, as long as you give the knowledge from Bhagavatam, and you being very experienced, and your wife, in these, I'm sure you've had very wonderful education growing up in this. So you should be able to present it in a way that's digestible for your child, but then, giving them the right conclusions, among all the theories. Okay. And regarding chemistry and, all the different experiments, and if the proper perspective is given, then they can understand that, when they have to do these things, they understand who is ultimately the cause for them, acid and alkaline, when you mix together, they explode, right? But what is this explosion? Where is this explosion coming from, and who is giving these elements? Who's the ultimate cause for all this? That's what they need to understand. The foundation that we have to give them is who is the ultimate cause behind all this wonderful phenomena that they see, and not to get enamored by that, and not to forget the creator. Okay, so this is something you can do. And then regarding social studies, through the Bhagavatam, they're getting so much of that, Vedic perspective, the Bhagavatam is a history, is a whole history of so many different kings and great devotees, Rajrishis, we call them, right? And the background is they were ruling the entire Earth planet. And we hear so many different, in the background, we hear so many different social customs and Vedic customs. So they're already getting a good perspective on social studies through the study of Bhagavatam, and these personalities are real, they're absolute. So when we learn from them, the children actually imbibe them, and they understand, the Vedic perspective of, social life. And then when they do them, again, the same idea, give it to them through Bhagavatam, and then you can introduce them to different other, histories and social customs in America and elsewhere. They will eventually get that over time, once you give them the proper foundation, because they're in America, they're naturally it's going to be focused on America, it's natural, So there's no rush on trying to teach them so many other cultures at this point, They will learn that, they'll pick it up eventually. But you can do it, you can do it in your own time. Like they can learn about Indian history, or Indian social life or whatever. It's always nice. So, yeah. And regarding japa, yeah, this is the nature of children. You can force them to sit in one place and do japa like a does. So they will play around. So the idea is not to make it very boring for them and so like a punishment, like I said. So you have to let them be a little playful, as long as, they are able to quieten down, to an extent where they can actually chant, um, like I said, it's just a matter of encouraging them and sometimes admonishing them. But at the same time, we have to have the boundaries, how far we want to go in making it very negative for them, so they can feel enthused about chanting, And I think it really helps when you have uh, the motivation through Prabhupada's books. I remember that when we were combining it with the study of his books, then it was easier because then when they sat down for japa, they could immediately remember, because they already got that inspiration from reading Prabhupada's books. So it's like a whole package, books, and then, festivals and seeing the example of other devotees who inspire them in their life, gurus, sannyasis. So it's like a whole lifestyle that encourages them to chant japa, So if you encourage that, ultimately they'll do it. Okay.
And just one last question.
Madhavari Prabhu, we'll have to wait because there are other devotees. So I will call on you if we still have time.
Yes,
Thank you so much. Very nice questions. We're going to move on to Aviram Guru Das Prabhu from Bahrain. He's been joining us for our other webinars and very enthusiastically homeschooling his children. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Special Dandavat Pranam to Aruddha Mataji. 4 years back, we started our homeschooling from her webinar with Radhika Raman Prabhu. So Mataji, how much you are inspiring through that seminar, I think, which was done by in Silicon Valley, I think 3 days. I don't know, it has changed lives of how many people across the globe, maybe you may not be knowing also. So we are one such family, Mataji, who 4 years back, and if you remember that time, we used to call you more frequently because we were learning the ABCDs of homeschooling. And people generally more in America follow your system, but we were far here. But with that video, Mataji, we totally changed our concept and we decided, no, we will do homeschooling. And since that 4 years, we are homeschooling our son Dhruva. And so, Mataji, overall, the experience has been very nice. We have been following your other lectures or we have been following your Bhagavatam books. And overall, the experience have been very nice and we are very satisfied. I mean, if my time goes back, even I would like to be homeschooled now. But our questions, Mataji, are two. First is that regarding, say my son is 8 years old. So how much time should there be a fixed hours that he should study for 4 hours, 8 hours, or we just leave it as much as he wants, sometimes more, sometimes less? Is there a benchmark? That is first question. And second question, Mataji, nowadays a lot of online classes he's learning, maybe some Sanskrit or something because of physical classes not available now. Because some other devotees used to help in the temple, now they're doing online. So whenever in the online class, he listens to the class, but he would like to play with Lego or something in the hand. So that habit, so these two things I wanted your clarity, Mataji. One is the time per day, how much should it be for an 8-year-old? And while doing any online class of music or Sanskrit, which we as parents are not able to teach, always he'll keep something in his hand and play. Something like a Lego toys. Is that normal, or how we can change the habit, Mataji? If you can clarify. Hare Krishna.
Regarding how much time can you spend? Well, he's only 8 years old. So personally, with the way it worked for me was that I was very flexible. I had a flexible structure, flexible homeschooling because of our situation. We were running a temple and there were so many things going on. So I made it very flexible. So I would find time in the morning, and if morning was busy because we had to go somewhere, then I would I would begin in the afternoon and and uh, and then try to do a little bit in the evening or make it up the next day. But generally, the time for an 8-year-old, I would say 2 to 3 hours seems fairly sufficient for actual, work in terms of what you're doing. I don't know what method you're following, but whichever method you're following, I think 2 or 3 hours of good school time is quite sufficient. And the remaining time you could spend in other different activities, like you're saying, music and art and Sanskrit. These are also learning time. I mean, this is still education. It's still going on all day. So, and the 2 to 3 hours in the morning would be more like English and math, and those basic subjects. But sometimes children, have their days, where one day he may be more inspired and he could, maybe want to go longer, and some days are shorter. So both ways it works. And you can have a very formal structure, and some children really do well with formal structure, and even parents, they do well with a formal structure. Or you can do a more flexible structure if you're particularly busy. So both ways it works. But you don't want to overdo that part, sitting at a desk and working, because for too long, children are very restless by nature, so they need. You can also do like some study, serious study, and then you can make it some more lighter for some time. So you can also change, because children by nature, they become restless. The idea is that how much work is, the work you're putting in and what your child is learning. But the child should not feel a burden, the child should not feel, because then it stops motivation. It limits motivation. The motivation, to build a proper motivation in our children really should see homeschooling as one great time, as one great play. And under those circumstances, they do a lot better, because we don't kill that motivation, that enthusiasm. So how to trick them in a way where they don't find it a burden. If they have to sit in one place for 4 hours, that's a long time, But some children do well with that. Some children are very restless, So that's one thing. And then the online class, like regarding online classes, some children, they don't, like I said, they are restless. They're more restless, and they need to work with their hands, like with their Legos. But things are still going in. They're still hearing. So if you know by the end of the class that the child has picked everything, pretty much everything, what was being taught in the class, then you don't have to worry. Because some children are restless and they need to play while they hear. So that's okay. But if you're noticing that the child was completely distracted, then there's something you need to do with it. Okay. So this will be.
That's a good yardstick to check that. Mataji.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Nice to get your darshan.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Our next question is from Archana Kritivaran Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danvat Pranams, and Krishna Shri Prabhupada and to you. So Mataji, so I'm actually from Arizona, and my Prabhu still lives there, but then me along with the kids, we came here on a vacation to India this January, but we are stuck here due to the COVID. And so we have been contemplating homeschooling for a long time, ever since our first daughter was born. So right now I have 2 daughters. One is going to turn 5 and the second one is just 1 year old. So because of this situation that we are like apart, and I'm also forced to homeschool my first daughter right now. So my first question is, you always talk about, I listen to a lot of your lectures from YouTube. My first question would be from, you talk about the importance of positive learning experience with kids. But here, due to the situation change, we never expected that we will be here with my parents and in-laws alternating. They don't follow ISKCON standards, or like we don't have deities here. So everything has changed so much right now. So if we are not able to keep up the standard, like for example, I see that when my sadhana is good, when my sadhana is at least satisfactory, and I'm able to read some of Srila Prabhupada's purports every day, my motivation to homeschool is really high. But on other days when I'm unable to do so due to a lot of family commitment here, my motivation, like I go on a guilt trip. So in this situation, I don't know if I should start homeschooling in the first place. And number two, if I mean, there's a huge delta between like what I listen from the lectures and what I'm able to implement as such at this point in my time in my life. So how do I depend on Krishna and like deal with it step by step? That's where I need some guidance on.
Well, yeah, the challenging time that that you're going through, I'm assuming that's going to be just temporary, right? It's not going to be forever. So under the circumstances that you're facing, you could do a combination of homeschooling and online, and this way you because your time may be very you may be facing challenges with time, whether how much time you can give to your children in terms of homeschooling if you were to homeschool them. So like some devotees are doing, go taking help with online instruction in some areas, and then also giving them the spiritual knowledge that they need, the spiritual training that they need, and a combination of both will really help at this point. And then when the challenges are a lot less, you can probably go all out for homeschooling. That's one option you can try and do, but in terms of your own inspiration, definitely you need to keep up your sadhana and get that inspiration, and then maybe read with the children, like not having time to read separately, maybe you can combine it with your children and get that benefit of absorption when you're reading Bhagavatam or any other scripture with them, so this way you can keep up your inspiration, because children are great sources of inspiration, also when you actually see them as your companions, and so you can try that way to get that enough of that inspiration. Okay.
Yes. There's just one more thing. Can I ask one more thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So since my second daughter is very little, my first daughter, she kind of had this emotional hurt feelings due to other circumstances, obviously. So if I have like due to lack of my attention, if she has been emotionally hurt, how do I actually undo and again like reborn with her and create that positive learning environment? So these things like kind of worry me, because if I start homeschooling completely, even a small I'm actually scared that I might create a very negative experience for her in the long term. So
well, homeschooling will only help, because if the child is within a very positive, unless the environment at home is negative and is detrimental for her, then of course I wouldn't recommend homeschooling. But if the environment at home is very nurturing and emotionally very nurturing and spiritually very motivating, then homeschooling is going to help her overcome her emotional, experiences, negative experiences that she may have experienced early on in her life. So a very healthy, spiritually nourishing environment at home is actually the way to actually help a child in that circumstance, because what is she going to get outside, in terms of overcoming that, it's not going to be very nourishing. Okay. So yeah, we all have our fears about homeschooling and not being qualified and things like that. But if basically things are okay at home, I think it's always easier and more beneficial.
Thank you. Very nice questions, and the very best in getting back home. Our next question is going to be from Tarani Radha Mataji, my good friend for many, many years from New Jersey.
Hare Krishna Mataji. I'm so happy to be able to speak to you after probably like 8 years. Yeah, that's right. Because from the time I was pregnant with Gandharvika, I had read an article about your son, and I think ISKCON News, and that was when I was just like so much motivated and so much inspired actually to do homeschooling. But at that time we were just new devotees, and my husband was like not interested at all. So it has been like such a long journey, and that thought was there. But then ultimately, it happened 2 months ago with the association of my dear Shri Radhika Mataji, with all these classes that she's organizing, and her enthusiasm, her support. Ultimately it was like a big yes from my husband too. And my daughter has been, it's nice. It's been a nice journey basically I would say last 3-4 years that even though she used to go just for kindergarten to public school because my son was born, the other time I've been like teaching her Bhagavatam and basically following your method given in that small, Krishna homeschooling book. It's been nice, but what I'm noticing more and more eventually is that she likes to hear a lot. Like she spent hours hearing, and my husband says she's not doing anything when it comes to writing as much as she hears. So I want to know if there's anything that you would suggest, some creative way in which I could actually channel that hearing that she has propensity and proclivity that she has towards hearing in others also. So thank you so much, Mataji.
So when you say hearing, you mean hearing, what does she like to hear? Lectures or?
Mataji.
Yeah, lectures. Yeah, that's really nice because children learn so much. They pick up so much vocabulary. In terms of academics, when children hearing, Shruti is such a powerful way of picking up all types of, academically, all types of vocabulary and, comprehension and language. It's just amazing. The process of hearing is, and this is our process, is to learn through hearing. And so you definitely don't want to curb that. You don't want to destroy that her attraction to hearing. That's very, very good. In terms of hearing, how to channel, channel that hearing in other areas. Well, there's, she can, there's so many, of course, lectures, and there's also Amala Bhakta's, different renditions of Ramayana and so many nice things that she can also hear. Now, in terms of your challenges that that you feel at home, in your husband asking you to do, they're saying that you're not doing enough, maybe about the, on the material side. Well, you can balance it by actually, getting books maybe on English and math and teaching her through those books, or maybe enrolling her somewhere where he's satisfied that you're doing enough of the academics, because maybe he's there to balance the whole thing, and it's okay, it's okay. So the whole process where she's not being left out on the academic side. So why not try to find different ways where you can do that, maybe find books, workbooks where she can do English or math, good workbooks. And that way she still has plenty of time. That's the wonderful thing about homeschooling. There's so much time during the day. It's amazing. It's just like you can do all your academics, satisfy everything, and then at the same time, then you have still plenty of time left for Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scripture and music, art, going out, of course, right now we're limited, but, Harinam and, and having book tables and prashadam. There's so much time for child, and the child is always learning as well. So why not accommodate everything and try to bring some more, academics into her schooling so your husband is satisfied.
Thank you so much, Mataji, begging your mercy and blessings so that we'll be able to successfully homeschool Gandharvika. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Tarani Radha Mataji. Our next question, I'm going to read it out. It's from Anisha Agarwal Mataji. she has a son that's 2.5 years old, and she says she has to do her household chores and take care of her child, and sometimes things become fussy. How to engage the child in games and studies, and basically it's, you know, the mommy wearing all the hats, and how do I do it all?
Yeah, yeah, good question. This is a challenge we've all gone through. So I've noticed that what really helps in, getting a child to overcome her restlessness at this age is just for the child to just do what the mom and dad are doing. Basically to just follow and imitate, and to keep her engaged in that way. You're cooking, well, she's got a little corner there where she's also, has got the cooking, her own toy cooking utensils, and she's, and there's so much out there now. I mean, you can get the cooking set from India, or you can even buy it in America. And this
boy, just so you're aware, it's a son, she said.
Huh?
She has a son.
Oh, son. Okay. Oh, changes a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. With boys, yes, you have to find other avenues. Maybe Lego. They love Lego. Even girls like Lego, but boys love Lego, and, um, Radhika, you can
They
help.
love cooking too. They just don't like their own little cooking set, but they love
Yeah, they don't like their own cooking, but they love to cook. They love
Yes.
to cook. I know my grandchildren also like to cook, and they're boys, so they love to cook. So engage them in the kitchen while you're doing, and if you're doing laundry, they love to help with laundry also. They'll take loads, and and take the entire responsibility. You can actually give them the entire responsibility of doing laundry for the family, the entire family's laundry, pretty much, with some help. They may find a load heavy and stuff, so you help them out. But this doesn't become a chore like it does for us, but for them it's really exciting. So in this way, well, it's only 2.5, sorry. Okay. So, well, then they like to play with Play-Doh at that age, and they like to, have toys, of course. So many different ways. But basically, if you keep the environment in the house very, very Krishna conscious, somehow it pacifies them. I've noticed the difference between a household that has no devotional activities going on, and no devotional music, and the sound vibration, versus a home that's has plenty of that. I see the children a big difference in their behavior, and in helping them quietening them, and making them more Krishna conscious. Offering food several times a day, they just love it. Giving them a little something to offer, and making them very, very attached. If you have a little area in the house where you have the altar, they engage a lot of time in looking at the altar, looking at the deities, looking, and wanting to do things like, you have flowers, they can offer flowers. Keeping them busy in those areas really, really helps to keep them engaged. The idea is to engage them all day in some little thing. And it cannot be one thing. Obviously, they're so restless. One thing, and then another thing, then another thing. Keep changing. A little, like Prabhupada said, it's a very, really nice quote where Prabhupada suggests that you do a little ABC, then you do a little deity worship, then you go and then you play something, a drama, and then you go outdoors, play some. So the children need a lot of change, but make it Krishna conscious. That would be my advice.
Okay, the next question is from Kalindi Sundari Mataji. Will you please unmute yourself?
Hare Krishna, you hear me?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
I have my sincere Dandavat Pranam to your lotus feet. Mataji, I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm the only person in our community who doing homeschooling. So my support, my everything is only my husband. There is no support. Okay, everybody like Sunday school, but they like to go on the outside school. But after I hear your seminar, like when my kids is 2 years, my big one, Krishna's mercy is like I didn't think also. I'm just cooking and let me hear something. I just open a YouTube and I got you. I start hearing. Go back. I just try to hear it and then it's make me so much. Let me try. And then I try and I really like it and I'm doing it. But I don't know I will success or not. But I like it. Some astrologer told I have 2 kids. One will become nice devotee. One maybe not going to become devotee, scaring me. You know, why am I'm trying both to make devotee. Why one become devotee? Why one not become devotee? Something like this. So I think I shouldn't go to the astrologer. I just focus on Bhagavatam, and that is so. My question is a big one. Yeah, he is a 7 years, and a small one is 3 years. So he's a Bhagavatam. Every day I'm giving. First I start the 7 years one. He understand more quickly because his age, and a small one take time. So I have to describe more story way, different way. That way is go inside like Garbhada, Shai Vishnu ball coming. What is his ball? You know, all this thing that way. And big one, what he do when I'm giving class to a small one, big one put nose on that. So much so, I see 1 month, 2 months, and then he finally telling me his class is more interest than my class. So he don't want to his class. He want to join his small brother class. And then I'm thinking it's not working. So I start both of them giving class one time. But it's like take time. It's slowly going because one sloka I take, then read purport translation, then describe and make sure they understand. And that way is going one sloka every day, not like quickly going. And another thing he doing good study curriculum, doing very nice, you know. Like we give him exam outside, they like it. But thing is that if I sit with him, he will very goodly he do. But if he's in that study and I'm in the kitchen, he cannot, he not going to focus so much. And then finally he come to the kitchen and tell me, I like what you doing. Whatever I do, either kitchen or I planting or anything, he will come put nose there. So I don't know. And with them, my time is going so much, I have no my own time. I like to do distribute books is to please my guru. So I have to connect with people in phone. I cannot do so much. They are around me. So Mataji is like little bit challenges. It's every side, but I like it. But it's like so much to do, Mata. So and how to. But I tell them, Mataji, one thing. I don't know this is good or bad. If they're too much like this, I tell I will send you to school. I done. I do my thing, you do your thing. And that way they get quiet. They tell anything you do, don't send her to school. So basically they are more in home school than me, you know, like on that side. But so how to like do easily, Mata, all this. I have 2 kids to different age, but they will sit. They will sit if I sit with them. If I sit 3 hours, 4 hours, they're doing that. I get up, they get up.
Okay, we'll request Radha Mataji to answer that question. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. So in terms of doing Bhagavatam together, it's a great idea because if you need separate time for both the children, that's going to be hard. So I'm glad, I'm really happy that you're managing it together really well, and that's wonderful. You can give the younger child some soft toys to play with while you're doing Bhagavatam, so this younger child can keep quiet, but can still listen. So this is a great way I tried, and other people also try, to how to keep the younger child quiet, but also listening while you are doing Bhagavatam with both children. So we just have to learn and become expert in that, because a lot of parents, they have that challenge of finding 2 separate times to do Bhagavatam with each one of them. Now, if the gap is big, then you may have to do it. You know, it's really, if it's big, but if it's manageable, then do it that way. Because even if the younger child doesn't understand everything, it's okay. You know, Bhagavatam overall is so powerful and so beneficial. So regarding, you know, your own time, you know, where you feel spent out, and that's understandable. I mean, it's a full-time job to raise children, and also on top of it, try to even homeschool them. It adds another dimension to the challenge. So it's totally understandable. And with support from your husband and your husband's help, I'm sure you'll get through this wonderful time, in terms of finding your, own time, in terms of book distribution you mentioned, I remember, then it's okay that you're not able to do it at this point due to circumstances, but also you could try to think of creative ways how to continue to do it, instead of giving up book distribution. You could, if you have a nearby, I know for me, I was fortunate because we had a college, a university right next door to where we lived a block away. So I would take the older child in a the younger child in a stroller, and my older son would walk, and then we'd go to the campus and distribute books there. So we found novel ways of how to do it, and then sometimes we had book tables, and the children could participate, and that's a different type of education we're giving them. A lot of education that really happens is outside the school. Schooling is not giving us all the education. Real education really happens outside the home, outside the school. So by giving them opportunities like that, you don't have to stop book distribution.
No, Mata, I didn't stop like we're doing now, and they both like so much to go outside. And because for virus, we have to call people. We cannot go contact with them personally. We call people. If they like, then we go. And Bhadra Purnima coming, this Srimad Bhagavatam distribution, they are very enthusiasm because they want to go back to Godhead. But my thing is that, Mata, I hear your seminar. You told you sometimes go to the prison, right? Prison to show them and also preach them. So they are 3 and 7. Is it a good time to go to the prison, or I have to wait little bit? They become little older.
You should wait. They're too young. They won't even allow them. Actually, the prison authorities won't allow them. They need to get older. So yeah, I would wait on that. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mataji, for your questions. The next question will be from Sadanandini Mataji. Will you tell us where you're joining us from, Mataji?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. I'm from Dallas.
Dallas, okay. Yes.
I have a question. Like, my son is like 5 years and 9 months old. He really likes to talk a lot. And he keeps telling so many stories. Like, he picks up a word or something and he can create a whole story around it. And he can give like so convincing story the others can think it's real. Even sometimes if he sees some Krishna stories or pastimes, he keeps telling about those stories as soon as he wakes up. That's his like, he keeps telling stories, like that is his first thing in the morning. So I have a question, like how to engage his propensity in Krishna conscious way.
Well, I think what he's doing is good and very good. Like, allow him to speak and allow him to give stories, and then as he gets older, he can write scripts, dramas, and he gets to be the writer of the script, the director or something, and then he can use his propensity in that way, of storytelling, or he could be, he could use his talent in becoming a great storyteller, So this is so wonderful, and it's such a wonderful talent that can be engaged in Krishna service so very easily, because all our scriptures are full of stories, and to be able to give these stories in such a creative way is wonderful. So I would definitely encourage this talent more and more. It's a wonderful talent.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. And I have one more question. I started recently, like this year, I was planning to do homeschool because of the circumstances. So I started doing little arati in the morning, and then I started reading Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto with them, Dhruva Maharaj story. They're really enjoying it, liking it. But I wanted to do little academics after that. By then, like their attention span is almost gone. Like it's all already 45 minutes to 1 hour. So I'm not like afterwards I have to kind of little bit force him or so. Do you recommend like doing Bhagavatam study differently and the academics differently, or
No, I mean, academic time should be a separate time from Bhagavatam time, because if you combine it, then it may become very long, and also they may see it so not so positively, maybe because they see it as work. I generally recommend separating it, but some people may have tried doing English during that time, which is also okay. Like picking out words from the section that you read, and and using them to understand the words, the vocabulary, the spelling, and all that. So you can do that, and they find it sometimes very exciting. Like if you read something for that day and you pick out a few words, they actually find it quite interesting, and you work on those words for spelling and for comprehension and all these things. Or you can give them questions from what they've read, and ask them to answer those questions. If you want to do it through Bhagavatam, it's wonderful. Yeah, you can do that. You can do all your language activities through the Bhagavatam. So it's very, very nice. But I would separate I used to separate the two. Like we would sit down and discuss and read, and then I would give them the questions at a separate time based on the material that we read. I didn't do it at the same time because it kind of destroys the flow of discussion, and really it limits the deep thinking and critical thinking that is required when we actually read and discuss. But the grammar and everything else, whatever we did, would be a separate time, but based on the same section because the material was fresh for them. So you could still give some writing work. But depending on the age of the child, at this age, they're not so much into writing. They're not so much into academics, real academics. So you do little at a time. Do things in very minute quantity, like maybe one word, maybe 2 words, like that, and for writing. And then the rest can be all oral, just oral, asking him, oh, what do you think of this? What do you think, why this happened, like that.
Sure.
So they right now at this age, they're more on that oral level rather than writing work. It's very common, but then they'll pick up, they'll get more and more encouraged to write more later on.
And one more last question, sorry. We just read translation or the transliteration and the words, Mataji?
Yes, well, I recommend that. Now, some people have been, have had good success with reading only one verse a day and elaborating on that and making it very creative and fun. I mean, if you want to do it that way, then you take the purport and you find creative ways of how to expand it in a way that becomes very exciting for them. And you can take out different themes from that verse, from that purport. You can do it that way. What I experienced, that it was easier just to do the translations and have to take turns reading, and then elaborating on the purports, which I would read ahead of time. Or if I didn't have the time, then I would read, just talk through my experience, my being older and everything, discuss through my experience. And then also we would read purports together once in a while, where we couldn't answer a question that came up. We could not, so we would find the answers in the purports. The best ideal way is to read purports ahead of time and be ready for them, and then use those points that Prabhupada makes in the purports in forms of discussion with our children.
Sure, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji.
So our next question is from India, and I want to share my screen because it's pertinent. The books are pertinent. So this question is from Sobia Aurora Mataji, and she says, other than academic subjects, what all would you recommend to teach or engage children especially with respect to spirituality and culture/art. So I want to show this link to everyone on Amazon, because I feel this book, Homeschooling Krishna's Children, that's available for just $12. It's the best $12 you'll ever spend. Answers your question, Shobhya Mataji. Really gives the whole basis and structure of Krishna conscious homeschooling. So perhaps you can refer to it, and it really totally answers your question. And I also want to show everyone, because there's another question in the chat about the activity books. So these are the books that are being mentioned. I am a big proponent, and I actually just ordered Canto 3, Volume 2, that is hot off the press, has only been available for a week, Mataji said. And I already feel bummed because I always want to be the first one to order these books. And I can't believe it's been a week already and I haven't yet ordered, but I just went ahead and ordered 2 for my 2 boys. So these activity books are absolutely amazing. And this is how my children and I read Bhagavatam in our homeschool. So with that, we're going to turn the mic over to Radha Bhava Dasi Mataji. Please ask your question.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danvat Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your wonderful advices. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and this is my first year of online and homeschooling for her. And my question to you is, at some point, I feel that she may require friends of her own age. Do you recommend that at some point, maybe in middle school, if she has a strong foundation in Krishna consciousness, do you think it is wise for us to, for me to let her go to school, maybe for high school, to fill in the gap for friends? Or do you think that that'll contaminate everything that she has received at home?
Yes, good question, Mataji, and a very crucial question, a very, important question, because, as homeschoolers, should we send our children back to school at a certain point? Well, that option is always open, but a child who's been homeschooled pretty much throughout her life, it's going to be a very big shock for her to go into something like high school, because as I'm sure you've heard, high school, the 4 years of high school are the most challenging time for a child, because what goes on in high school is, in terms of peer pressure and values and, the attraction between boys and girls and the conversations in that, that children have, it's it could be very, very contaminating for a child who's grown up in Krishna consciousness, or for any child, right? I've had that experience when we were running Govinda's restaurant, and somebody we knew who came in, and his name was Kyle, and I was talking to him, and he said that if there was anything he would like to change in his life, is that not having gone to high school. He says, for me, those 4 years were very, very shattering, And
my Guru Maharaj, Srila Ramapada Swami, says, one reason I don't want to take birth again is because I don't want to be a teenager and subject myself.
So that area, yes, Radhika, this is a very good point. And I think Jayadvaita Swami was also talking one time, right? What, you can share that if you like, so that, so many people devotees have had the experience who have gone to outside school, that if there's something they would like to change, is that period in their life, which was very, very devastating, and morally and socially and in every way. So we don't want to subject our children to high school if we can help it. If we can avoid that, that would be very nice. And there are options now. You can do online, you can do private homeschooling. The exams, it's universal exams, right? GED, they call it. And you can do it sitting at home. All the books are available. And child at that age, who's been homeschooled, who's learned how to independently study and has developed good independent study skills, for that child, doing high school privately at home is not going to be a problem at all. Because by then, the child has learned how to practically teach himself or herself. Just with a general supervision from you and your husband, the child should be able to pretty much teach himself. And then, of course, if you need help, you can always hire private tutors. And that is available in America. Or they can go to a group homeschooling class. If you're living in a big city, they also provide those things. They have places where teachers have set up a science lab in their houses. These are retired teachers, retired public school teachers who are opening their homes to homeschool children, and they have set up a science lab in their houses, and the children go and do science experiments there with them. So again, they are associating with other homeschool children who have good values. So the atmosphere is not so contaminating as you would find in a public high school. So I would not recommend that for her at that age. Now, in terms of a social need, of friends, that is a challenge, especially having only one child. It is challenging. So for that, you try to find avenues where she's not alone so much, and she can find friends of her age to play with, of course, and to associate with. Of course, that association doesn't mean that she has to associate every day like they do in school. That is not necessary. But yes, maybe on the weekends, you can find friends where she can invite to a home or go, and she can have some time with her friends. So that would help. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
So I just sent in the chat the video of Jai Advaita Maharaj that Mataji was referring to. And I also said in the chat, you can start listening to it at 51 minutes to hear the section that is very inspiring to me and that Mataji was talking about. I have also sent in the chat a link to order her books through Amazon. We have a question here from Mataji that is asking, do we need to read Srimad Bhagavatam books and then use the activity books, or can the activity books be used as standalone books? I do have Srimad Bhagavatam books. How can I access them? I do not have Srimad Bhagavatam books. So perhaps you can order them through Amazon. But she's asking about any online resources. So I'll let you answer that much.
Well, ideally it is best to read Srila Prabhupada, to do Bhagavatam study from Srila Prabhupada's books with your children before you use the Srimad Bhagavatam guidebooks. Because I've discussed in the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam guidebooks why that process is the best, because and why it brings the potency of by reading Srila Prabhupada's books, we can experience directly the potency in those books with our children. And so the methodology would be how we can sit together and take turns reading translations that I recommend. And of course, you can devise your own creative ways as well. And then open it for discussions. And then we go to that chapter in the guidebook and do those activities in those guidebooks. And you don't have to use all the activities, but those you can pick and choose according to the age and interest of the child. And this way, it becomes a very exciting adventure, because they not only read and discuss, but they also actually get to do hands-on activities and learn through that process. There's nice art projects as well. So this way, which is based on the philosophy. So this way, they have another creative way of and fun way of understanding Srimad Bhagavatam.
And I also sent a link for a blog that I maintain of teaching from these books at the Sunday school. So it's a little different than teaching at home with these books, but it can give you some ideas. Our next question is from Sanchayani Balasubramanya Mataji, who's watching on YouTube.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Radhika.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Our next question is from Sanchayani Balasubramanya Mataji. Oh, actually, so her initiator name is Chintamani Devi Dasi. How to do morning program at home? Because my son is still breastfed and he's 2 years old. He wakes up so often at night. And also thank you for the Krishna Homeschool book.
So, yeah, for a 2-year-old, morning program is not going to be like the usual morning program, because he's just too little. But at the same time, it's fun. It's fun for them. So we can make it flexible. We can make it very short, in other words, rather than a long one, because children are restless by nature. So we can cut it short. But it's nice to bring the child in front of the deities in the morning and sing and and offer some paraphernalia, if it's just flowers or fan, whatever we can manage with them. I think that I spoke about it in the book, how it really helps in setting a certain discipline in the children and starting the day right. And when we start the day right with chanting and hearing the holy name of the Lord and glorifying our spiritual master and glorifying Prabhupada, it just sets the day in such a transcendental way. And children are affected by that. We may not be able to see it, but they are being influenced in a way, because we see a difference in their behavior and the way they behave all day. They think about Krishna all day. They talk about Krishna, and this is really our reward. To see them Krishna conscious in this way, even if they're 2 years old. It's just so wonderful to see them, and it begins with the morning program. So yes, you will face a lot of challenges, but try not to worry about that too much, and they love it, and they love Tulsi Puja especially. They love Tulsi Puja. Mm-hmm.
All right. Champaklata Sakhi Mataji has been waiting anxiously. She has another question.
Hi, Krishna Mataji. I have one very important question. I read your book, and when I came for seminar, Radhika Raman Prabhu and you both mentioned that they should have their own deities so that they can also attach to deities and they can do morning program. So actually, Guru Maharaj named Garima's deity is Gaurnitai, and she welcomed her Gaurnitai personal deities on this Janmashtami. Now we just don't know how to make it simple or elaborated. I remember Radhika Raman Prabhu said every day the deity should be bathed so that they feel connection with the deities, and they will have the sense of that love for deities. Now, I have a struggle that I have a 3-year-old and he's very wired. When it comes to diya, agarbatti, everything I want to do it. Fan, everything I want to do it. And sometimes he don't know how risky it is. And this is where my question is that how long it's supposed to take in the morning program with 2 children, and how simple can be Abhishek? Like, should it be only water or milk or yogurt? If you can just advise how you used to do with both, that would help me.
Yeah. So it can vary with different situations, family situations. One formula doesn't work exactly for everyone. Like they were gifted by one devotee with 4-inch Gaurnitai deities. So it became very, very, it became something that it was meant to happen. Now I know some families, it's not possible, so for children to have their own deities. So in that case, they can actually participate in the worship by being assistants to the parents when they are worshiping. You see, so they're both ways. Just to clarify with everybody else here, is that it can be done both ways. The idea is that they must have some form, some participation, in deity worship. It's just very, very beneficial for them, for them to fix their minds on the form of the Lord, because then they get a tendency to relate with the Lord as a person, as in a personal way, right? So now, in terms of you have deities, wonderful. If they have their own deities. Now, in terms of how much to do and what to do, it depends on how old the child is and what the child can manage and how much time you can spare in terms of being with them. Because even when they have their own deities, they have to be done, they must do it under supervision. In other words, they are taking the lead to bathe them. However, the adult has to be there to supervise so that they don't make really bad offenses. Of course, some is understandable, and that's why it's recommended that to have Gaur-Nitai only and not Radha Krishna, right? So in this way, yes, bathing would be very nice if they can bathe, especially if they're small and manageable, then it's a lot better for them. And so they can bathe and dress and, and do artik, and it's really wonderful, if they can be engaged in that way. It becomes, like I mentioned in the book, that it becomes one big play for them, because children will play, they will spend their time playing. So it becomes play for them, but at the same time, they're learning, how to respect the deities and things like that. So you just be flexible and see how far you can go, how far you can manage with different items. But
So
if
my
you
question, can it be like a simple worship, like just the agarbatti, diya, and flowers, or it has to be elaborated with the children?
No, it can be simple. It can be very simple, because when child has a danger of being burnt by incense, what you could do is just give the incense, but without lighting it. What can, if it's going to be dangerous for them, for hurting themselves, I would not recommend that. So so you can devise different ways, where
And
so,
abhishek can be like just the simple tulsi and water, or it could be like a milk or
just
elaborate.
water on a daily basis. Just water is fine. Yeah.
And it should take, like, I know with adults it take long time, but them having academic studies and Srimad Bhagavatam and everything going on, how long it should take in the morning program?
It can. Well, when if you're singing or something, and if you're homeschooling, you can go a little longer, but you don't have to make it very long, because if you just do abhishek with water, that goes really fast, and then the clothes and everything. But it depends. I think an hour is very good. You can spend an hour, which includes the morning program and Tulsi Puja and Guru Puja. If they have the limits, then you can even sing, like Guru Puja. You can can sing it, and like you can make it smaller, shorter, in any way you like. Okay.
Mataji, I have one more quick question. The little one, he is very much attached to deities and whole Krishna conscious procedure, but his nature past 1 or 2 months has become very angry, very frustrating, and very screaming and hitting. It is a sudden change. And I feel sometimes I'm not attending him, and then I'm attending older one a lot, because she's learning Srimad Bhagavatam and schooling and so many things. Older one is learning. So, and he's interested a lot into Srimad Bhagavatam, but then I'm not able to balance between two, where read her and read him. So what would you suggest me to discipline the younger one? How can I bring him back in the leash? He's only 3.
Oh, well, 3-year-olds, they have their days and they have their tantrums and everything. So this is part of the growing up process for the child. And you just have to engage and divert the child into some activities that, where he can be pacified, and some certain, you just have to know the techniques of how to control a child who's completely out of control, a certain type of, putting a little bit of scolding, in other words, becoming stern with the child sometimes helps, but not too much of that. So kind of balance it with and try different ways. But again, a Krishna conscious environment in the home is most helpful in any situation. So keeping that up in spite of all the challenges and struggles that you're going through juggling between 2 children's, it's a difficult time, but if you keep it Krishna conscious, you will get your motivation, you'll get your inspiration, and this time will pass, and whatever struggles you're facing in terms of materially, then it's just going to be balanced with Krishna consciousness. It's not going to be it won't have negative results. Okay.
Thank you for your questions, Champaklata Sakhi Mataji. We're going to move on to Achintya Priya Mataji. She's been joining us all through the summer for webinars, and it's really nice to see you now. And you're 2 enthusiastic Vaishnavas and the beautiful temple behind you. So, so nice to see your family. Where are you from?
I'm from Romania originally. I live in Guwahati, Assam now.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to ask about deity worship. When the children were small, they used to participate and they used to imitate us, offer all the paraphernalia, even change the glasses of the deities. But as they grew older, they somehow stopped joining. Morning, we make a short aratika. Evening, we do it in family with a little more song and Bhagavad Gita we read. So nowadays they prefer to go outside in the courtyard when we do aratika or evening. They look in some books or somehow we try to encourage them, but we don't want to force them. So I wanted to ask how to deal with this situation.
Yes, yeah, things change and children are very restless. They may begin, most children do very, they are very absorbed in deity worship when they are young. And as they get older, other interests take over and they have so many other interests. So that's okay because, you know, their interests, if they are spiritually geared, then it's still benefiting them, you know. So we can have them just even if they attended the artik, you know, and they were able to sing or play harmonium or whatever, then that itself is also a nice way of doing deity worship. It's deity worship. So the idea of deity worship is to be involved in some way or the other in serving the Lord, you know, in front of his form, you know, to come together. So if you're able to manage that much where they can come together with family and or even
sometimes we cannot manage. That is the problem.
That is part of well, what you could do then is that instead of having them come in front of the altar, which requires certain requirements and you know, structure, then what you could do is just sit in the good moments. You could sit together with them on the ground and then just chant together. You see, some type of chanting will be there this way, you know. So instead of being in front of the altar, you sit together as family and you chant together. So try to think of different ways where he's involved in that way, and you can bring him to the process of chanting and hearing rather than always playing outside. So, and I'm sure you can manage something during the day where you can sit together and do, and of course you can do fun activities, artwork and things like that.
We do that.
Yeah. So that's okay.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Next, Vamsidhari Gopal Prabhu.
Yeah. Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Mataji, like I have a question. Like I came to Krishna consciousness very late, like just 3 years ago. And by that time, my younger one was 5 years old and the older one was 12 years old. So as I'm practicing for last 3 years, the younger one is kind of gelling pretty well in all activities. But I'm struggling with the older one because till 12 years, she had no exposure. And now she is in high school, so busy in her own world. So it's very difficult to motivate her to engage in any kind of activities, and especially during this lockdown, because earlier we were having home programs and some other temple programs. So we used to go there. She used to be with her devotee friends and at least had some activities. But now at home, she's just busy in her schoolwork and studies and not chanting or doing arti or study or anything. So what I can do so that it's not forceful, it's not, and it's pleasant, you know, to engage her in some activities. Any ideas you can suggest?
Well, you know, there's a lot of online association even for children right now, and maybe you can find something where she can connect with and get more association of other devotee children of her age group. Radhika Mataji, do you know any like that?
Yeah, I have some groups like the Sangha group and like our local teenage Sangha group also. But the problem is that I have to remind her to join those classes also because she is not motivated on her own. Sometimes she is not seems interested, like she's attending the class, but same time she's doing something else as well.
Well, was she like that before the pandemic hit, or her interest?
Might be. Yeah, she's not too much into on her own. Like she like when she's along with others physically, so
Yeah.
like when you are going for temple programs, she used to sit in classes also. She used to participate in festivals and hang out with other devotee children of her age. uh, so she's not into her own kind of person. She when she's around with people, then yes, it's she's not averse to it, but it's like that she's not very much interested on her own.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, the pandemic doesn't help at all in terms of get-togethers and going to the temple, and it's very hard at this point for many devotee parents. Uh, you know, I maybe Radhika Mataji, you can suggest some, if you have any ideas how to engage her, especially during this COVID time, so that she can have more association, online. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, it seems, TSI, and then there's Mataji that does the course with teenagers. I'm forgetting her name right now. She's the principal or vice principal of TKG Academy.
Gopi.
Gopi Gita.
Gopi.
She
Gopi,
does
yeah.
classes with teenagers.
Yeah.
Those are the two that a lot of teenagers find inspiring. But I understand, you're having to push her even to these classes is an issue.
Right.
And I've known teenagers like that, through my years of, teaching Sunday school and youth. And I'm sure Aruddha Mataji would agree, we guide them and loving, teenage is a time when it's just really not possible to push them in a certain way, or they'll even go further away. So just those gentle reminders and guides, and then leave it up to Krishna.
Yeah.
It's a difficult time for teenagers, especially if they're going to public schools. So if there's an alternate, just a message for others also, that if there's an alternative, for sending them to public school, I mean, this is a good time to look into that. Of course, it should be looked into it earlier because it makes it easier. Many children at this age, they actually reject the idea of being homeschooled because they feel it's too late. However, if you can do that, then there's less a chance they're going to drift away into material things. So since all of you are here, or aspiring for some alternative way of educating your children, I just want to share that with everyone.
That's not good. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Madhav Hari Prabhu and his wife have another question.
Yes, thank you, Mataji. This has been very inspiring. I just have questions on, so our eldest one is 9 years old, and I heard you say that not to stress it too much, and take it in a slower pace. But at what age does academics become serious, right? When do we need to start worrying about, are they keeping up with the studies? And the second aspect is with regards to social studies and science, and teaching them through Srimad Bhagavatam. What about state level assessment tests? How do we cater our education to materials or questions that will be asked in those tests?
We are completely homeschooling them, that is doing social studies, science, everything through Srimad Bhagavatam.
Mm-hmm. No, yes, I did not suggest that you ignore the academic side. What I was suggesting is that, do it, make the foundation strong through Srila Prabhupada's books. The understanding of these subjects should be, rooted in Vedic philosophy. And then when they, alongside, at least simultaneously, you cannot do it before, so simultaneously, so that they can, their perspective is still rooted in Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, you should do whatever is required for her in terms of academics. If she needs to do all those subjects, you can go along with the curriculum that is recommended for any child, in public schools. So why not do both? You can do both. And this way you don't have to worry so much. Okay.
And what about that, making that, when does it become serious and we have to be like really focused? Like our experience is like from kindergarten onwards, it's like heavily academic focused, right? When we went to school in India, it's
Right.
like you sit there in class after class for 6-7 hours. But here, if with homeschooling, it's like we can go fast on one day, slow on another day. But when do we need to start worrying about like make it really focused?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good time, like 10 years old, I would say, because, and during up till 10 years old, you can really make their foundation strong in English and math, so that when you do introduce other subjects by then they are not lacking anything, because they are very good in these two areas. So when you do introduce other subjects, it's not going to be a struggle or a challenge. Okay, so yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
So because Prabhupada, they recommended Gurukula for the first 10 years of their life, of a child's life. So which means that it's nice to give them a training which is more heavily based on spiritual training, because, and Prabhupada's books. And then while simultaneously teaching them, some math, and then you can introduce other subjects.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Siddhari Gopal Prabhu, please go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji. I have another question. So, like I was talking about my teenage daughter. So she is actually interested in drawing and sketching, and she likes to draw like Krishna sketches, and even she draw Prabhupada sketches as well. So I was just wondering, like we were reading from your Bhagavatam study guide to younger one. Sorry. Yeah. So we were studying from your Bhagavatam study guide, and I know that you are working on few other volumes. So is it some possibility that she can show some of her work to you and then see if she can be engaged somehow in that service for drawing some sketches or some artwork or something like that, so that at least she's engaged and she gets some service? She's motivated and interested for that because that is of her interest.
Yeah, I know there's many other places where she can definitely become inspired. I will try. I already have a couple of artists who are working on the books already, who are doing all the artwork. So, but
Okay.
yeah, but definitely you can send her artwork to me and I can look at it and
Sure.
send her words of encouragement. I would love to see that, yes, because she may be a really nice budding artist for the future. So yeah, you should definitely encourage her. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mata. Thank you.
Champaklata Sakimataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I have a question. Along with homeschooling, like Garima being 7, how okay it is to include her in little bit housework? Because I feel sometimes, like at times where she's like, okay, I'm done doing academics, this, that, everything. Are we putting burden on them, making them help in housework, or is it okay for them to help out in housework?
It's absolutely okay to help, to get them to help in the housework, because it's really nice for her. Prabhupada recommended that, that girls should be given good training in that. It's not that we should ignore the academics, because girls, pretty much you homeschool them in the same way as boys, But yeah, it's something like cooking and doing housework. It's really nice for both boys and girls. But especially I was talking about cooking. It's nice for girls because they are naturally maybe more attracted towards that, cooking. So it's a nice way to do practical devotional service. It's And also it will help you, and they develop a positive attitude towards, these types of jobs. With people have a tendency to look at them as lesser activities, spiritual activities, but actually it's wonderful.
And Mataji, I have a weird question for you. Please forgive me if you don't like that question. I know you were a superwoman, raised wonderful two children. And how did you manage like housework, cleaning, cooking, both, and then both were not fighting? I always want to hear from you because it happens where both the children are fighting. I'm struggling with the housework, cooking, cleaning, and making all ends meet. And then they both love to go for book distribution. So I always take them and they also distribute books happily. But my housework and everything is always on a juggling mother. So I always want to ask you this question. How did you survive through that procedure?
I wasn't successful. I had my challenges like anything, like anybody else. So my story is very much the story of any of you. The struggles and the challenges were there. And I wasn't always successful in keeping at all my house clean and everything perfect and the cooking perfect. I was having my own challenges. But one thing I did do is that I did try to do over time was try to remodel my kitchen in a way where I could do it fast. So like I had the tendency to keep things very simple and be able to do it faster. So just so I could have more time to devote with them in doing other things, other requirements, and plus I had some, duties at the temple and things. So that's one thing. You can look around in your kitchen and see different areas where you can make it simpler for yourself, things that you can adjust, ways you can organize your kitchen, where you don't have to think too much, where things are easily accessible, to save yourself the time, for that is needed. And we spend so much time in the kitchen like that. So that's one way, is try to organize your life in a way where it makes it simpler and easier. And I'm sure Radhika Mataji has some experience with that too.
Struggling, yes. That was a very disarming response. Thank you, Aruddha Mataji. Kalindi Sundari Mataji has another question.
Hare Krishna. My wife has, she's doing offering now. She can, yeah.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mata. Mata, you talk about this morning program. It's like, of course, it's very important. But Mataji, what I'm going through right now is like, as I told you, is very like so much thing coming, rush, and then I am they fall asleep, and at the time I have to finish my round, and by the time I go to bed is always midnight or after midnight. So morning program happen like with me, right? They take shower, everything. So when I wake up and everything get ready, and then morning program. So my morning program is right now is after 8:30, 9, or after 9:30. But we do morning program, but it's not happening like a standard time is 6 o'clock. So what you suggest, mothers, with me on this condition?
How old were your children?
One is 3 and one is 7.
3 and 7, I remember. Okay. So yeah, I mean, yeah, for the 3-year-old, it's very, very difficult to keep a kind of a schedule. So it's okay. You try your best, and then you keep trying, and you try your best. But it's important that when you do that you do have a morning program. This should be their first thing in the morning, so that they must start the day with chanting and hearing. So it's all right, whatever you can manage. Krishna is very kind, and he adjusts to different situation as long as the sincerity is there. So it's okay.
And another thing, Mataji, my 7 years boy, yeah, he hearing me, he loved to mommy. Yeah, but I also feel bad. I'm sometimes strict with him, but he like do what mommy say. This mommy boy, both of them. But thing is that because he's really restless stuff, he's very restless to get pull his focusing in everything. I have to pull his mind every side, either Bhagavatam class or study, everything. I have to pull his mind. So he's kind of a little restless. He want activity. Like right now, he cutting grass outside. He like that, and to help father. So my thing is that this is okay. Like 7 years, this is the age when they're like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, depends. Some children are more restless, and some children are more sober by nature, and some are very restless by nature. So the idea is to how to use that restlessness in a proper way, how to channel it. And you already know that technique as a mother, right? So the idea is to channel, because Prabhupada said that we can be in any varna or ashram. The idea is to get the proper training, to get the proper spiritual training. So so the child's nature can be more on that level where he's more active, where he could rather than sober. But it doesn't matter. Even in Krishna's pastimes, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, we see devotees in all different types of moods. So I don't think there's a handicap. It's just that he should be engaged. His mind should be engaged. And you're doing that. So it's okay.
And
Mataji, I'm sorry, we're going to have to move on to Anuradha Sakhi Mataji. Would you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes.
I have a 6-year-old, nearly 6-year-old, and a 6-month-old.
Mm-hmm.
So, and of course, the baby arrived just before the pandemic, and then the 6-year-old was in a part-time Montessori, and her school stopped immediately, and it was chaos. So we sort of now have some kind of a rhythm, but I constantly find that when baby needs attention, and the 6-year-old has struggles with focus as it is previously as well. So by the time I get her to do something, the 6-year-old, in the middle of it, the baby's crying. So we're just constantly bobbing back and forth, and not actually, because of also her focus issues, and not, it becomes a very frustrating experience, the whole homeschooling thing. So any words of advice on, I try as much as possible to, when baby takes a nap, try to be ready and have her sort of preempted that, what, I'm putting baby for a nap. As soon as I come out, we're going to do this. But I think the amount of time it takes for her to get focused, sometimes the baby is up, or something else needs to happen around the house, like cooking, like multitasking, that unless I give her that one-on-one absolute focused attention throughout, we're not getting anything done. So it's becoming very frustrating for, the parent-child relationship is getting affected as well. So any words of advice there?
Well, yeah, this is a challenging time, and maybe with the support of your husband, maybe your time is really challenged at this point, especially with the 6-month-old baby. Maybe your husband can help out in that. What the child needs is some focused time, and I agree with that, right? So if either one of you can give that focused time, or some elderly person who could be there at this time, or somebody just the child needs something where she feels like she has some special time, a member of the family, then they generally get pacified. So maybe your husband can do that, and suggest it to him, and see if he can spend an hour or 2 hours with her, and do some nice thing with her, some nice project with her, where she doesn't feel neglected or left out. Generally when you have a new baby, the children go through this sibling rivalry, where they feel left out. They don't feel, she may not feel that, she's a lot older, but yet, like her problem with focusing, could be also that she's her brain is working, is very sharp at this point, and she needs to, her brain is very sharp at this point, and so she needs to be engaged. You know,
Yes.
very intelligent, and she needs to be engaged.
I think our challenge is more the actual. I mean, we try to spend one-on-one time, like, you know, doing fun stuff, because she's a very fun-loving child, very sociable. So for her, the pandemic thing has been, you know, like heartbreaking. Like it's really taken a toll on her. But my challenge is more the sitting down to focus at academia. I mean, in school, I think it was like she was in a part-time Montessori for you know, so that peer pressure seemed to work for her. Like, my friends are doing, you know, working on alphabet or math of some kind, I'll do it. But now at home, it's like, okay, and you know, husband is busy with work, you know, during the whole day with meetings. So it's that getting that her to nail, you know, I have 45 minutes with you, let's use it productively. And it just doesn't happen. Some days we succeed, some days it's just a fight.
So maybe a good way would be to find smaller chunks of time, quality time with her. Like, don't be so focused on spending 45 minutes in one stretch, you know. And that could be again challenging for you, but that may be you know, the way to get around her restless nature, where you can find smaller chunks of time and several times a day. And it's amazing how even that will help in the academics, you know.
Okay, sorry, I have one more question related to my 6-year-old, again along the same line of I guess it's the same, but japa, she has become so, she used to have like her japa sort of chart, like, you know, we had a little calendar, and every day that she did, like, you know, two mini rounds, she would put a heart for Krishna. And I think through the end of my pregnancy, which was hard, and now with the baby coming, and it's been really hard being managing alone, that she's just totally averse, like, you know. And I'm not a good example right now, because my rounds are like, you know, here, there, you know, late at night, or so. I'm just, her father tries to sit with her, like, you know, we're going to sit down together in front of our altar, but she's previously, we used to be so proud, as from 4 to 5 years old, she used to be so proud of her monthly japa chart, you know, draw hearts there or draw pictures that I did it. But now it's like, no matter how much, like, we try, and it's just become like, I just want to play, like, I don't, you know. So I'm not sure what to do there to bring her back to it.
Yeah, so children go through their stages, and especially having a new baby was also very life-changing for her. So they go through this. You know, I won't worry so much right now, and just try to get through the day with the small baby, and then it'll, you know, and as the baby gets a little older and things are more manageable, you can restart it. You can bring it back, but don't pressure her too much at this point for japa, you know, and then as you go, things will, you know, with time, things will change, and you'll be able to focus more. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mataji.
And I'm afraid that's going to be our last question for today. So I sent out a poll, and 16 people have taken the poll. So if you haven't yet, 17, then please do. 94% of participants felt the session was extremely useful, and 100% of participants will like another session next month. No pressure. So as always, Mataji, thank you so much for your time. It was so helpful to hear your answers. I have the same struggles as everyone else. And Jiva was about to end the meeting just now. So thank you so much for doing this for us, for taking out 2 hours on this Sunday. And we're just eternally dependent on your guidance. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, Radhika. I've really enjoyed, you know, answering these questions. I felt very, very inspired, and to see so many wonderful devotees, parents here, you know, being so sincerely trying to raise their children. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. I also hope to be back, definitely.
Viva!
Haribol.
You know what's going to happen next. I'm going to send you a little text. So, what date in September?
I know, exactly.
You know me by now. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. What makes the session lively is your participation. So thank you for participating, devotees. Happy homeschooling.
For spending the time to do this.
Happy homeschooling, everyone. Enjoy the struggles.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you in a month with more struggles.
One day. Same to you.